Kicking that, rocking the scene with you in old flicks from the 90s. So keen, the VHS Club, they're the talk of the town. Breaking it down, spreading nostalgia all around. Moving and grooving to the synth-pop sound. Their insight is so fresh, painting pictures profound. From Pulp Fiction to Clueless, they know it all. The genuine love for movies stands tall. Unfolding memories on that VHS screen, talking about classics like you've never seen. Katie with her charm, Matt with that wit. Together they make the VHS Club legit.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while. You could miss it.
What is so dangerous about a character like Ferris Bueller is he gives good kids bad ideas.
Well, why should he get to skip school when everybody else has to go?
Syphilitic meningitis.
He never gets caught.
This guy in my biology class said that if Ferris dies, he's giving his eyes to Stevie Wonder.
Well, he's very popular, Ed.
I recall Central Park in fall.
Ferris Bueller, do you know him? Yeah, he's getting me out of summer school.
They think he's a righteous dude.
Think he'll be alive this weekend?
I can see him denying popular belief, setting off on some impossible mission.
He jeopardizes my ability to effectively govern this student body.
He does whatever he wants,
You know, as long as I've known him, everything works for him.
whenever he wants,
He's very cool.
and he never gets nailed.
Ferris can do anything.
Oh, he's such a sweetie.
Wake up and smell the coffee, Mrs. Bueller. It's a fool's paradise. He is just leading you down the primrose path. Matthew Broderick.
Bueller. Ferris Bueller.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because life is too beautiful a thing to waste.
Welcome back to the VHS Club. I could just watch that trailer over and over and over again on repeat. We are so excited to be hanging out with Lou today, but unfortunately we lost Nat to some internet connectivity. So we're going to cross our fingers and hope that maybe she can pop on in a little bit. But in the meantime, Lou and I are going to geek out over this movie. So buckle up, everyone. Welcome to the club, Lou. I'm so happy that you're here. And I'm so happy that you were like, have you done Ferris? Because we had not. And this is just the perfect time, the perfect person, the perfect moment to do it. So welcome.
This is awesome. I am super excited. I love this movie. I've seen it 9 times.
Which is perfect.
Well, actually more than 9, more like 900 times. I didn't get out much as a kid, or as an adult. It's fine.
Yeah, I love this. Oh my gosh. It's an absolutely fantastic movie, and if you haven't seen it, we're so sorry. As we say often on this episode, spoilers. We're gonna dive deep. You are going to find out all of the ins and outs of this movie. And as Doc is saying here in our comments, here's where Katie goes totally berserk. Here's where we go. Nat is not here. I am off the rails, everyone. So buckle up, get ready. It's gonna be crazy. If you are brand new to this show, because Lou somehow tricked you into coming over, we record this show live most Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, and you can always join our live studio audience so that you can be part of the experience and let us know what you think and give us movie recommendations. So if you're listening to this or watching this later, you can always join us live on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, but you you may have missed this one, and that's really sad. So we won't have your feedback. It looks like most people have either seen this one or haven't seen it in a while or just recently watched it. Jake said he caught up. He watched it yesterday. And Josh has seen it. Even Val has seen it, which usually Val has not seen any of the movies. So we're in a good place. All right, Lou, what about this one makes it so memorable to you? Why was this your pick? You had the choice of all of the 80s and 90s movies, of which Paul tells me there are thousands and thousands and thousands of them. What is it about this one?
Well, when you asked me, I was super excited. And you're like, what movie do you want to cover? And I think I just sort of like brain dumped like 40 different movies from the 80s. I'm like, well, I could do this one or this one or this one. That's right. And then when you said Ferris, I'm like, oh, like how has nobody taken Ferris already? It's like the draft, it's like the NFL draft. Like, how is this player still available? And you're able to get Ferris Bueller. So I lucked out.
Well, part of it is that when we started this show, we were like, I was telling you this right before we jumped on, but I am not a film critic person. I have a bunch of friends who went to school for film studies who could tell you every detail and nuance and critique all of these movies. I'm the person that just spent a ton of time in front of the television and like at sleepovers, and that's all I wanted to do. And like all summer long, we just rented movies and sat in front of the TV, and no one stopped me. And so here I am later. And so when we started the show, we were very much in the mindset of like, well, we'll start with like, we'll have no audience. So we'll just start with all of our like ones we've memorized, like ones we live and die and think of. And for us, a lot of those were those like kind of weird, quirky, cult classic 90s movies. And so I feel like this one was it's certainly one of my favorites. It's certainly one I know by heart, but it kind of like, it almost felt like too big to include in like the first like few episodes, because it's the one that like clearly people are going to, it's like, well, that's for when we have an audience. So here we are, we have an audience, and we can you
gotta like work up to Ferris Bueller. Like you start with Nothing But Trouble and you work your way up to Ferris Bueller.
Yeah. I could have maybe not done Nothing, but no, just kidding. It was good to Nothing But Trouble.
That was I just told you that was the first episode of the show I listened to. Is Nothing But Trouble, because nobody ever talks about that movie, and there's good reason why nobody ever talks about that movie. No. But
I learned a lot about that movie, and if you haven't listened to that episode, Brian was our guest on that one, and he really changed my mind about that, because I went into that movie being like, what are we watching? This is garbage. And I left being like, okay, I feel like Dan Aykroyd and I are like, I get Dan Aykroyd better on the other side of watching that. So I learned a lot. In it. Well, Nat's not here, Lou, so I'm going to put you in charge of giving us the quick summary of what this movie is about. We got a little bit of it in the trailer, but how would you describe this one?
So I didn't really answer your first question, right? And what the movie's about is what I think it's why it's so beloved, because it's what we as high school kids, like he's living the perfect day, right? Playing hooky from school, tricking his parents, tricking the teachers, tricking the principal into getting the perfect day off, right? And Cameron says like everything just sort of goes right for Ferris. He's like the guy whose superpower is luck, and everything just goes right for him throughout the day. And he lives, a lifetime of adventure in just a few hours with two of his best friends. And the other thing too, and I realized this the last time I watched it, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, for funny as funny as it is, it's a very like heartwarming and emotional like character
really
story
is.
too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. It really like it creeps up on you and it gets you. And I think that it's that moment where, and it's all through, I think for me at least, it was all through Cameron, like where you almost like at the beginning of the movie, you're kind of, everyone is sort of immediately in love with Ferris, right? Because he's living the dream. Like he's smart enough and he's got like enough gadgets and, is clever enough to pull off this ultimate, what everyone would love, right? He's able to like make his principal look like an idiot. He's able to trick his parents. He gets away with it. Like he clearly always gets away with it. And yet you have this other character, his best friend, who's sort of just like the sidekick to it. And he's never like, he clearly doesn't get away with it. And he's always, he's got this like clearly terrible home life. And on one hand, you feel really bad for him because it's almost like Ferris is taking advantage of him. But then as you work your way through the movie, you realize that Ferris is actually really trying to give him this really special moment. And the journey through Cameron's eyes, or watching the movie, keeping a close eye on that character, I think really does change it, because it goes from being this like silly, like high school kids being high school kids trying to get away with everything, to this, really deep, heartfelt story, which I think is just so perfectly John Hughes. Every time I watch any of his movies, I'm like, I want to do nothing but watch all of his movies. I'm like, forget it. Now I'm in a John Hughes mode, and that's it. Nothing else exists.
And I think one of the things that John Hughes, especially in this, does really well is he helps to paint I sort of get the sense that there is like this backstory of, and I filled in the gaps myself, like Ferris and Cameron have been friends since like kindergarten. And, along the way, they started to take sort of divergent paths. Ferris became the kid that everybody loves. He was the sort of quintessential cool kid. Cameron was more of an introvert, a loner, but they still remained friends. And you're right, this is sort of Ferris continuing to help Cameron sort of come out of a lot of different shells that he's sort of a prisoner in.
Yeah. And I love, and we've talked about this I'm trying to remember exactly. I think it was Goonies, actually, a little bit in our review of Goonies, but there's something about this era of movies where the kids and the teens have this like inventive, clever, somewhat mischievous, like thing. And I really miss that in movies these days. Like the fact that Ferris is able to use the computer that like he wishes was a car, and like his, he somehow has like a mannequin. He's able to rig up this like elaborate system that's able to trick everyone. Not even, and then also the answering machines, like the work that they do to trick the principal to get Sloane out, to get Ferris's girlfriend out of school as well, is magic. And he was Inspector Gadget before he was Inspector Gadget, right? Like it's really like admirable. I guess that's probably not the right word, but there's something magical to it. And I think I don't know. I was reading a review where Matthew Broderick was talking about the amount of people that had wanted this movie to be made a sequel. And he was like, look, it's never going to be a sequel. It doesn't make sense as a sequel, mostly because it's this like perfect moment in time. Yeah. And I think it's this like feeling in time where I think he's completely right. Like I don't think you could pull this off. Maybe there's a different way you could, but not with the same magic. Like there's something about like the sister slamming down like the phones in anger. Like this movie doesn't work in today's society with the same level of awesomeness that it does back in the 80s, or I guess it could have worked in the 90s too. But
well, I think the movie was sort of perfect within the four corners of the movie, right? Which is why the TV show didn't work. It's why a sequel wouldn't work. Like, God forbid they say the word reboot and try and reboot Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because right, you can't. It is perfect for this time. Like all of the puzzle pieces just lined up perfectly, from Hughes to the actors who, like, think about some of the actors that turned down the roles that are here. Because if you try and like recast this movie, there's not a lot of wiggle room that I think would make for a more perfect cast than what we got.
No, it's so well. Each actor brings these characters to life in such a like specific and perfect way that, I mean, even Grace, so this is the secretary in the school, she's so great. Like from like all of her lines, the fact that she's like knows every single thing that's happening in the school, and then and the names of every single kid, and she's also kind of eye-rolly with the principal, which makes it even that she like thinks he's a little bit of an idiot, but she's putting up with him, but that she's no nonsense with Ferris's sister right when she comes. So she's just like, and such a minor character, but that actress just nails it. Like she
steals the show.
She steals the show. She steals every single scene. And often I have because again, not a film critic. So every time I watch these, I always have this you know that I love a movie or the actor really pulls it off when I can remember the character name more than the actor name. Like when I'm saying like, you know, Ferris did this and Ferris did that versus like Matthew Broderick did this and that. And this is one where it's like every single like character name, who are all, many of them pretty big name actors, but it's the characters. I mean, just the characters are so good. It just, I can't pick a favorite. Do you have a favorite? I mean, I have a favorite character in this movie.
Oh, I don't want to make it creepy, but I may still be carrying a very, very big torch for Mia Sara all these years later.
She's pretty fantastic. She has like, did you notice? So I rewatched it like almost right before we jumped on, and I feel like I looked her up to see like her history. She has like almost an accent. She's an old soul. Like she almost sounds like a little bit European. Like there's something about her that, yeah, she's got a presence. I can see why you're a little bit in love with her. I'm a little bit in love with her.
There's something very like elegant and mature and intelligent about her. Like you can see she also like comes from wealth. Like she wears a Cartier watch.
Yeah.
So she is, but there's nothing sort of like arrogant about her. Yeah. So, and I know like they originally, like Molly Ringwald wanted that role, and I could not imagine her like filling that role the same way.
No, it's I know that's been one of the fun things in reviewing these older movies and in kind of prepping for these episodes is almost every single time you do any research on it, you always pull up the list of like other actors and actresses that were up for these roles, and it's almost always you're like, no, what? No. Right. Like none of these. It would have just been if the movie was even a little bit good, you just can't imagine a different actor in any of these roles. Yeah. And I love Molly Ringwald, but I can't.
Not here.
I just can't picture her in these roles. Jennifer Grey, I don't know. She might be my favorite in this one. The level of, as an older sister, the level of just like her energy and her like desire to try to catch him, and the fact that no one takes her seriously. She's like playing a similar character to the principal, but she's so likable. Like you just can't not like her, and you just appreciate like what she stands for. And the scene at the very end where Ferris is like trying to run back home. He's late. He's been on all these different adventures, and her mother has just picked her up from the police station. Like things are not going well for her, and she's driving home and sees him, and like their eye contact. And of course the mother is like shuffling papers and doesn't, is completely oblivious and doesn't see him. And that race home was just like, I don't know. There's so many good moments in this movie, but the race home I thought was pretty fantastic.
I think, and I really loved her because you can almost you can empathize with her and like what she's going to, like, especially if you're a sibling, like, there's usually one that gets away with everything. He gets all these things. And if you watch the near the very last scene, there's like this moment that she switches gears from like wanting to like get Ferris in trouble to when she's standing in the kitchen and she hears Ferris and Rooney standing outside, and she opens up the door and like her face changes and she winks at Ferris. Yeah. And everything just changes all of a sudden. His expression changes, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. Rooney, and you forgot your wallet." And I was like, "This, brava, like very well." Like,
it's so well done because like she hates everyone. She's in like the total like teenager, high school mode, and so it is almost that moment where she's had this entire experience in waiting in the police station. Like it's not even in jail. She's like waiting in like the police station where she talked to the drug addict or the drug dealer that was and had this whole moment with him. But it almost like clicks to her, and I feel like her wanting to get back at the principal like almost overrides how she feels about her brother in that moment as well. It's like she like is kind of impressed with him. She's kind of come off this moment where is feeling less upset about everything. And I think just the opportunity of sticking it to the principal is also kind of awesome. Like she now knows it was him.
Yeah. Right. That was her Ferris Bueller moment. Like now I finally have the upper hand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty great. The quotes in this movie are epic. This is one of these ones where I don't think I have this movie completely memorized, but watching it again, I'm like, oh, I know
Yeah.
a lot of this movie. And I think a lot of it is in the magic of Ferris talking to the audience, as well as, so he's like the storyteller of his own story, as well as just the dialogue, and the kind of funny moments between all of the other characters. But it's almost as much fun like watching Matthew Broderick just nail that role and like talk to the audience as it is hearing like all of the other dialogue that surrounds it. Do you have a favorite quote? Is there like a quote that there's probably a ton of them, but
Yeah, like I have a bad Ferris Bueller like quoting problem. The last time I was watching it, my son was downstairs and he's on his phone, and the movie's on in the background. Like, because this is like the perfect background.
Oh,
movie,
this is the
right?
background movie. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm answering emails and I'm not even watching the TV, and I'm repeating the lines, and I see him look up from his phone like, dude, what are you doing? Like, no, this is what me and my brother would do. We would just sort of watch these movies over and over again and repeat the lines over and over. Can't even say I have a favorite. Like I wish I could do the Grace quote, like with the Sportos, the Motorheads, the Geeks, the Sluts, the Bloods, away, like, but I would not do Edie McClurg any justice. But it is, I think it is one of the most quotable, other than maybe like Airplane, of the 80s movies.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably is one of the most quotable. And we got Nat back. Welcome back, Nat. You exist. Cross your fingers, everyone.
One of my favorite quotes that I say almost every day is "Pardon my French."
Yeah. Yeah, pardon my
Which
French.
is super funny in Montreal because we all speak French as well as several other languages. But
where Rooney comes up behind what ends up being a woman and not Ferris Bueller and says "Le jeu s'en fait," and then translation, the game is up, and you're like, oh no, no, that's not him. That's a great one. There's so many. I love Ferris's intro, and I can't even, same as you, Lou, I can't remember like the exact words at this point. I can quote them like while it's happening, but I can't think off the top of my head. But the very, very, very end of the movie, if you watch all the way through the credits, Ferris comes back out and is like, "What are you still doing here? The movie is over. Go home. Shoo, shoo, shoo." And I like it's all of those moments that are just like John Hughes brilliance. Like it's just so relatable
and paid homage to
fun.
Another movie. Like Deadpool paid homage to that.
Yes,
at the end of the first Deadpool.
Oh, really good point. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I feel John Hughes never wastes a moment on screen.
Mm-mm.
Like there's not a second in this movie that's wasted.
Yeah.
Like I love when they're at the museum and how he does the little art shots, which shows the quirkiness of the characters and also the coolness of Chicago. So he has all these little moments that are super special.
Yeah.
I remember reading something like Barbara Bush, like when she was first lady, like quoted Ferris Bueller in like a commencement speech or something. Yeah.
That's incredible. Seriously? Okay, that might be my favorite fact. That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Doc says that Grace did two of his favorite movies, Carrie and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is really high on my list. So we said before, and you probably were watching and trying to get back on that, but we were saying earlier that you and I started with all these like kind of in our minds, probably not for everyone else, but in our minds, Katie and Nat iconic 90 movies. But what we have not yet done is our run of like John Hughes, so maybe this will kick that off, but our run of John Hughes movies, of which we love pretty much all of them. And then we haven't done all of our, and this is me more than you, Nat, but like all of the like favorite, like Say Anything, like all the John Cusack-ish ones, like some with him in it and some not. Oh, we may have lost you again on the worst.
Well,
we're gonna have the most
so
fun.
happy that's
right.
the freeze frame shot.
Exactly.
Of her,
I saved you, Nat. You'll be back. All right. No.
But yeah, like this is like especially if you grew up in high school around this time, and like the way that the kids were dressing and the way the things that they were saying and the way that their hair looked was so relatable, right? It's like one of the best high school movies. We look back at some of these movies that I think are relatable to us, that sort of grew up in this generation. I was born in 68, so you can, do the math. Like this was right in the time that I was living, and I was, at that age. So I think that's one of the things he does so well, is he makes these movies so, like, you'll find elements, or you'll find the character like, oh, I knew that guy.
I knew
or
that guy.
was
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I'm loving everyone in the live chat is sending through their favorites. So yeah, Charlie Sheen is in this. He's the I don't know. He's actually the one I don't know if I know the character name, but he is the like drug dealer or the guy being busted for drugs who's in the police station at the end.
And you know like what he did to prepare for that, right?
Yeah, he was up like what was it, like 48 hours or
Like 2
something like
days.
that. Yeah, he looked haggard, but also like Charlie Sheen always kind of looks a little haggard to me.
I was like, well, he looks more like the way he does now. So
I know. I was like, did he practice for that, or has he just always been a little into drugs? So maybe he was okay at that. Yeah, he was still fantastic though, because he again like none of these characters are like all good or all bad. They are like caricatures of real people. As you said, they're relatable. Like you see almost every like aspects of them in real people that you can think of, like from the principals to the secretary to the parents to to Ferris and friends. Like every single one of them is like maybe a tiny little bit more extreme than what you might run into, but pretty close. Pretty close.
Well, and Charlie Sheen was so like insightful. Right? In the very short conversation he had with her, all of a sudden he makes her become very introspective and sort of reflective on her own life. I mean, sort of they're making out 5 minutes later because clearly she's so grateful for that. But like her meeting Charlie Sheen, I think was part of why she ended up helping Ferris at the very end too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I love like his kind of line of questioning gives her that thought where it's like, I forget the exact line that he says, but it's something to the effect of like, like what are you so upset about? Are you like, you're upset that he's getting away with it? Like that's what you're upset that you can't get away with it. It's like she's not really all that upset. It's like she is, but not really for a great reason. Like there's no
I mean, one of the very first things he says to her is, "You wear too much eye makeup. You look like a prostitute."
Yeah.
Right? And he goes, "You don't want to talk about your problem?" Like so he is like calling her out right out of the gate, and she sort of pushes back, but then she's like, "Wait, he's sort of right." And next thing you know, she's opening up about Ferris and her parents.
Yeah.
It seems like she just needed somebody to vent to, because apparently everybody in this whole universe loves Ferris.
Yeah. And no one listens to her. So she is the epitome of and I actually don't know whether or not she's supposed to be older than him or younger than him, but she's sort of the epitome of the forgotten child. Oh, you did? Go for it.
She's younger, because
Okay,
I
that
thought
makes
they
sense.
were twins, but she's younger
Okay. That makes
by
sense.
2 years.
Huh. Go figure. Yeah. The back.
So wait, I'm a total trivia nerd. Like this is why I didn't date very much. So the
Hit us
story
with
about
the trivia, Lou. We're in.
right. You're talking about like who's younger and older. Like about the missing siblings, right?
No, I don't know about the missing siblings.
So, and actually, you saw the missing sibling already.
Oh,
So
in the
you showed
trailer.
the trailer.
Yeah.
In the trailer, that girl is Kimberly, and it's Ferris's sister.
Oh.
And she does some sort of like Latin diagnosis of what like is because so Ferris is supposed to have 2 younger siblings. Todd is a 7-year-old brother, and Kimberly is a 12-year-old sister. She's in the trailer, and if you look on the refrigerator, there are like drawings or stuff on there, and there's a picture of the whole family on the dad's credenza behind him. I told you I did not get out very much, but this is
I love movie trivia, so I'm all in on this. I think that's fantastic. Paul is saying that the first edit of the film had a running time of 2 hours and 45 minutes. So yeah, there was a lot that was cut out, which is kind of crazy because I read that this entire script was written in like 6 days. Like it was so fast. John Hughes was basically like, I have a great idea. Let's go with it. And they're like, great. And he's like, okay, I'll write it really fast. It just turned around so quickly that there wasn't.
Don't you want to see the 2 hour? They say they'll never show it.
Always.
I want to see the 2 hour 45-minute cut. Right.
I almost never, not that I don't want you to give trivia, but I almost like never want to know that stuff because then I obsessively want to watch it, and I'm up like I'll spend hours researching like online to see if I can find like scripts or like I go down.
The script with the brother and sister exists online. The full script with the brother and sister.
Okay, see there.
You're in the very first scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so funny when the trailer was playing. I was like, I don't remember that part, and I just watched this movie. But I know that trailers are often cutting things out, so it was funny. For a moment, I was like, well, maybe she was one of the like kids in school because they're all talking about how sick he is and all these crazy things that are with him and whether or not he's gonna die in time before the party. But she looked definitely younger than the high school kids, so yeah. That you wanted to talk, Nat, about if you're able to for the next little bit. Internet hates you today. You wanted to talk about Kenny, so you have a minute to talk about Kenny before internet dies. Go for it.
Okay, in like 5 seconds, Kenny Ortega choreographed the Twist and Shout parade scene, and which I didn't realize that until today, and I'm obsessed. Everything Kenny Ortega does is like touching gold. I'm obsessed with him. I want this man to know how much I actually just love and appreciate everything he's ever done.
I'm always marveled. Like we'll get to like the credits and it was like, this is choreographed by Kenny Ortega. And I'm like, this one too? Like, how did he do? He did like, I mean, not all of it was choreography. Some of it was like directing and whatever else, but he did Dirty Dancing, this one, Hocus Pocus, and High School Musical. And I'm like, I don't like, it's like, such a wide range of stuff. Like it's just nuts and yet really impressive.
This got him a job. So the dance scene in Chicago I couldn't find the name of that dance troupe, but I know I had found it many, many years ago.
The ones that are going like up the stairs doing the like dance. They're apparently from maybe Lou knows more, but they were from the Michael Jackson Thriller video, or they were involved in that video in some way.
Well,
oh wow!
No, the shaky guy was from Thriller, I think.
Oh, okay.
The guy that shakes. But regardless, they were phenomenal, and this got him to do a Michael Jackson video. Like Michael Jackson is like, "You're amazing, hiring you." So he's choreographed Michael Jackson after this, which was super cool. I'm like,
everything.
He's Kenny Ortega.
Now it's a game. Now it should be a game for all of us to just be constantly checking to see if Kenny Ortega is involved in these movies. If there's any choreography, we should be like,
was it Kenny Ortega?
Yeah, 6 degrees of Kenny Ortega. That's our new game, Tater Tots. Everyone is.
And I need Disney to get him back because Netflix screwed him over with a TV show he did that came out just during lockdown and it got canceled. But Katie and I are so emotionally attached to that show.
Yeah, we're
like
very
Disney, can you
emotionally
bring Kenny back into the family so that he can finish the show for us?
Can we crowdsource like and fundraise to have that show get picked up by literally anyone? I'm in. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, Paul's sharing more fun facts with us. So this movie was ranked at number 10 on Entertainment Weekly's 50 Best High School Movies from 2006. And yeah, lots of it. Well, there's a couple things. I wanted to read this one quote that I found. Forgive me for reading, but so Ben Stein, which again, like incredible in this movie, he's the economics teacher. He actually was an economics teacher, so it suits the whole thing. But he said that he was exceptionally moved by this film, calling it the most life-affirming film possibly of the entire post-war period. This is to comedies what Gone with the Wind is to epics, he added. It will never die because it responds to and calls forth such strong human emotions. It isn't dirty. There's nothing mean-spirited about it. There's nothing sneering or sniggering about it. It's just wholesome. We want to be free. We want to have a good time. We want to know we know we're not going to be able to do that all of our lives. We know we're going to have to buckle down and work hard. We know we're going to have to eventually become family men and women and have all the responsibilities and pay our bills. But just give us a couple of good days that we can look back on. And I was like, this is so perfect. Like, it's just so that is the entire thing. Like, and as a endless rule follower still to this day, like feels sick to my stomach if I'm Cameron. I would just be there sick to my stomach. But I like every Cameron needs a Ferris who can force them to do these things because it makes a huge difference. I think I don't know. Yeah.
Technically, Katie, you're my Ferris.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, I'm a rule follower Ferris. So
yeah, sort of. You get me into things. You're like, yeah, let's do this. Okay, like the podcast. Just like, we're doing a podcast. I'm like, all right.
We're doing a podcast.
Right, you got to have that yin yang relationship. Like, I think that's why they have like and I think that's one of the things we watch that we're like, I want a friend like Cameron, or I want a friend like Ferris, or I wanted a girlfriend like Mia Sara, but never mind. I'm going to move on from that.
She And you must have loved this, Lou, the moment where they are in the taxi downtown and the Ferris's father's taxi pulls up right next to them, and they like, kind of like stop, and Cameron's like mouthing like, your dad is here, like having a panic mode, and then they both just drop to the floor and she stays. And that scene, like, you could not, there's no way that there isn't a person that isn't in love with her. Like, she nails that scene in the most fun loving, like, teenage sassy like woman. Everything about that scene is fantastic. She's got the sunglasses, she's like moderately flirty with him, but then also like Ferris starts like, you know, tickling her and attacking her, and then she just does this like laugh hair throwback. I watched this even today and was like, I aspire to be that cool. She is so cool in that scene. She's absolutely fantastic in that moment. And I mean most of the movie, but that one in particular I think was her like best moment in this movie.
Did you guys talk about the parade?
We didn't talk about the parade.
Okay. So again, it's one of the most famous scenes from the movie.
Yep.
The production snuck a float into a real parade.
Just so great.
That was happening in Chicago. And then a couple of weeks, like to get some initial shots. And then a couple of weeks later, they were doing a little more filming, and they were like, oh, we hope we can get some extras to like join in. So they put out a call out, and over 10,000 people showed up. And a lot of the dancers because John Hughes really wanted it spontaneous, so he kept like cutting choreography. So like other than that one group, but yeah. And I mean, also I think what's his name? Ferris Bueller had a knee injury.
Yeah,
so like there's a whole bunch of things. And
he filmed the like jumping, like running home, jumping over like all the crazy stuff scene before this one. So he actually hurt his knee. he was not super able to do much choreography.
Yeah, so they got so many people to show up, and Matthew Broderick didn't realize because everybody's sort of behind the float for filming. And when he turned around and saw that there was like thousands of people there, he like put his arms up. He's like, oh, I felt like now I know what rock stars actually feel like in real life. And you could see the expression on his face is a little more genuine. Like he's not all like the normal Ferris Bueller, like cocky and whatever. You could see Matthew Broderick is a little sort of surprised and pleased and surprised, like how many people were there. And then I also heard that a lot of the dancers, like on the sides, like the dancing on the scaffolding and stuff like that, was actually just real people that were working in the area that day. And John Hughes was like, make sure you film all of them because they were just joining in. And I think that's what brings so much joy and genuineness to that scene. It makes it as iconic as it is.
Yeah. I looked up the parade for that movie, like for that like I was like, what parade is this in the middle of the day in Chicago? And it was like a very weird, of course I don't have it in front of me at the moment. Paul will give me. It's a weird like German parade that was related to a German, like a military person in the Revolutionary War that helped what would become the Americans defeat the British, and they still do this parade every single year. And I was like, I would love to go to Chicago and be in this parade. And I was so bummed to find out, although we're getting closer to the 40th anniversary, but I guess at the 30th anniversary of this movie, they like in the middle of that parade, they did this entire tribute to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which I thought would just be such a cool experience to get to participate in. I was like, oh man, I gotta get there for the parade. Yeah, the parade scene was pretty fantastic. I have a question actually for both of you. So I know, like, I get that this day is longer than the school day, but didn't this day feel like an eternity to you? Like in my mind, I was calculating the hours. I'm like, okay, so they live in like the suburbs, so they're not like right downtown Chicago. So they had to like, first he like screws around for a bit. He like, you know, takes a shower and he plays, like first he convinces his parents he's going to stay home. And then he takes a shower and he like plays musical instruments and like chats with people in the audience, changes his outfits 900 times. And then he like has to work for a while to convince Cameron to go with him. And like, you know, and then they have the whole like have to convince the principal who's like on his tail, and all of the wizardry that they do with the answering machines. And then they break Sloane out, and then they go downtown. So it's got to be like an hour at least. And then it probably takes them a half an hour to get downtown. I'm like, I don't buy that this was only until like 5 or 6 o'clock. I'm like, it feels like this would be they go to the museum, they go to lunch, they're like taxiing around. There's a huge parade, so traffic would be really big. I had a hard time, but this felt like the most full, complete day ever. And I was like, no way, he'd be back at like 9 at night this day.
Suspend the disbelief just a little bit, right? Maybe they didn't stay for the whole baseball game.
The baseball. They went to a baseball game too. Baseball games go on forever. There's no end to baseball games.
I feel like when we were younger, there was that sense that a day was an eternity.
That's true.
And I find by doing all of the things that they're doing, John Hughes is reminding us how we really lived in the moment and didn't, like, now we always, as adults, you plan, you think, you're thinking ahead, you're thinking 10 steps ahead, and it brings us back to that, like, joie de vivre of being a teenager, and where it's like a Friday night seemed like it would go on forever, so I thought that was kind of cool. But it does make me think as a grown up, like, what?
No, my grown up vibes. I'm like, where are his parents? Why are they not?
You could do one of those things in a day, it would be exhausted. Like,
I know, yeah. Also, like, where do they? I mean, I guess Cameron is really wealthy, but I'm like, of course, I live outside Boston, and I'm like, it would be like a good $400 to go to a Red Sox game, and like also, and like taxing around, and that fancy, like they get into the fancy restaurant, but they still had to pay for the food. So they're paying for the food, and they're doing. So yeah, I was definitely having some adult moments. Yeah,
it does seem that they are in a different social class.
Yeah,
like they're not in the average social class. I mean, look at Cameron's father's, like Cameron's parents' house and the cars and even Ferris Bueller.
Even Ferris's house,
they got him a computer in the 80s. Like, how rich were you? And
it probably cost more than his sister's Fiero. So
absolutely, it did. Like, man, I couldn't even build a computer yourself back then. It was too expensive.
Right, like Sloane had the Cartier watch. Yeah, so you're right. So they were,
a different social class.
Okay.
I mean, we talked about this in Home Alone as well. It seems like it's kind of common in John Hughes movies where it's definitely like an upper middle class, where we were like, wait a second, what are these parents doing that they have the house this size? I mean, in Ferris Bueller's house is the same way. They have that entire like intercom system, which I remember like as a kid being like, whoa, the kids whose families had intercom systems were like the wealthiest people in the world. Like, you didn't even need an intercom system in the size of our house. You could just yell, like, and everyone would hear you. There was no need for such fancy things. Val, come on. Val has worked with Kenny Ortega. Val, you've got to go home and then back and tell us all about your experience with Kenny Ortega. You just broke Nat's brain. It's over.
She works with Diana Ross and what's that most like Kenny? No, I'm like Kenny Ortega.
You broke Nat's brain. It's broken.
That's what happened. Lenny Kravitz. That was live. My brain not catching up to what's happening. I was like, what? Oh my God, Val, you're my hero.
I'm loving all these comments. Well, I wanted to say, Nat, if you noticed this, so Lou, Nat and I played a lot of this board game called Masterpiece growing up. Have you ever played or heard of the game Masterpiece? It's a very bizarre game, and I recently found another copy of it, like I think it was either like on an eBay or kind of like yard sale, online yard selling kind of situation. But the premise of this board game, this like old Parker Brothers board game, is that you're buying and selling art, and you have to like lie about what your artwork is worth. It's like, some of them are forgeries and some of them are all the way up to $1 million, which is crazy. But all of the art in that game is all from Chicago. And so in the scene in Ferris Bueller, it's like every single painting in the background. I was like, that's in Masterpiece and that's in Masterpiece. And even like rewatching it now, I was like leaning over and my husband was like, don't get out the Masterpiece game. Like, we don't need to like compare the artwork in this game. I was like, I do. I need to like, it's amazing how much these movies not only are like this incredible experience in watching them, but in rewatching them, they trigger the exact point in time that you first saw them and all of the memories that are associated with it from your, you know, from your childhood and from your adolescence. And I don't know, it's been the most fun part, I think, of this show and of rewatching all these ones is that moment. Like
something you just said just sparked us. We were just, I'm going backwards a little bit. We were just talking about like how well off people are. They went to the stock exchange too. Sloane's father must have a seat on the stock exchange because that's how they got to sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not even a thing anymore, really.
Right.
It was like all the yelling and the people on the floor. Is that a thing now? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing this anymore, like buying and selling.
Yeah.
I love that. Apparently, Doc has told us that the baseball tickets were like $10 back then in 1986. Okay. But yeah, it's only nowadays.
You can get cheap seats. So maybe like midweek when they're skipping school, maybe it's okay. But yeah, definitely pretty expensive.
Even in the 80s and 90s, the Expos tickets were expensive relative to the cost of living at the time. But
there you go. Oh, I'm catching up on all the comments. There's been so many great comments. So Paul has said that the parade sequence, twist and shout scene, was filmed during the Von Steuben Day Parade. All right, everyone. One of these years, we're going to all go together to the Von Steuben Day Parade so that we can appreciate the ridiculousness of this parade. Thank you. And George also was probably shouting at the screen, come on, Katie, it's the Von Steuben Day Parade. Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. Apparently it's a holiday traditionally held on a weekend in mid-September. All right, I was wondering that because they swim. And but then they're not wearing summer clothes, but I guess they're in the hot tub, but they're swimming as well, and they're in Chicago. And I was like, what time of year
and
is
the baseball game, that they go to see and that was on the TV is like in June. Early June.
Yeah. I mean, it takes place. The movie takes place. It seems it's supposed to be like their last semester. Didn't the principal say like the last 10 days? Isn't it the last 10 days of school?
I don't remember that. I know he had missed.
It's got to be close, yeah.
Yeah, he had missed 9 days, but then the parade is in September, so there's.
Suspension of belief.
Doc, I know movies are not real, but also sometimes I want them to be real. So there's a little.
Remember, Alan Ruck was like 30 years old too when he filmed this, so a lot of stuff is not.
He does. I mean, he looks 16. Like I am impressed by that. Like it. Usually it's the other way around where you're looking at like the Dawson's Creek kids and you're like, no, like they're not in high school. I don't buy that for a moment. But with this group, I actually felt like they were they looked like high school kids. And I know they wanted Sloane's the actress playing Sloane to look older, which is hilarious because she wasn't really. I think she was 18 when they were, but she's probably like the oldest looking of them, but I think that's, again, she's got like a European flair. There's something she's not. She's a totally American, but she wowed me with her. She's sophisticated. She's got a sophistication.
Well, I mean, her family's got to be from somewhere. We're all immigrants in North America. Like, just saying,
Fine. You guys are breaking everything. Movies are not real. There's immigrants in America. Come on.
Saying, like, she's definitely probably got some European genes.
Oh my gosh. All right, I'm like slowly catching up with all these comments. I missed saying hi to Tatiana before she had to head out. Now we're talking Radio Shack in the comments. We're dating ourselves. All of us are making ourselves seem much older than we are. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to. Oh, there was. I wanted to hit this. Oh wait, I gotta bring Nat on screen. I removed her and
I'm in the shadow.
You could be the voice of God. Hang on, you're here somewhere, Nat. Okay, you know what? This is Ecamm at its best. We're gonna duplicate Lou. 2 Lou's for the price of 1. We're gonna switch over to. Oh no! Now we're 2 Nats for the price of 1. Oh no! Hang on. Did I do it? No, I didn't do it.
No. This is
Yay! All right, we're good. And if you're listening, you're like, what the heck? This is because we do this podcast as a video podcast that we also share as audio. And we were having some technical challenges, but we're all back here. Now you can see and hear all of us. This that you're looking at, and I will read this out for people that are listening, but I don't know if you caught this. I definitely didn't, because we all know how completely oblivious I am to details. But the car license plates of a lot of the main characters in this movie are acronyms for other John Hughes movies, which I think is absolutely incredible. And I was looking on my phone while watching, so I actually like caught a couple of them. But Katie's is VCTN for National Lampoon's Vacation. Jeannie's is TBC for The Breakfast Club. Tom's is MMOM for Mr. Mom. And Rooney's is for Ferris Bueller's Day Off, for FBDO, which I think is just perfect.
That's so cool.
With the exception of Cameron's dad's car, which just says nervous, which is also fantastic. That I wanted that car so badly. I'm not even a car person, and I wanted that car so badly.
It was cute. She was pretty.
It was so pretty. And Dane tells me that it was would have been, I forget what it was like preposterously expensive. He gave me like the price tag today, and I was like, oh, okay. I can see why the dad was so upset and into his car. High value.
And it's funny, when I first saw the movie, I was like, oh my God, like they literally killed, like I was sad that they destroyed a Ferrari, and then years later I found out that they like made 6 copies of what that, the California, was it like a 250 Spider?
Yeah.
I think
they couldn't afford that car. They couldn't even afford to like not damage it. They couldn't afford to even like be in it or around it in any way.
Didn't they pay the Beatles? So they had backup songs for the Parade for Twist and Shout.
Yeah.
And this is probably why they had no money for the car, is because I think they paid the Beatles like $100,000 for the rights.
Wow.
Yeah, to use the song.
Which then they weren't cheesed about.
Yeah, and then Paul McCartney was a little cheesed off because they changed the song without permission by adding the brass band. I mean, yes, it was to make it look more like it was in an actual live parade, but yeah, so he was apparently cheesed off by that, but I'm sure it's forgiven now.
Think about how many kids, though, at the time were introduced to that song because of not because of the Beatles, but because of Ferris Bueller.
The music in this movie is perfection. Like there's not even like there probably is, but you don't even hear it as like a score. Like there's very little, or at least to my ear, there was very little instrumental, but every time like there was a scene change, there was just this very like iconic song that, exactly as you said, Lou, like would have been like how I learned most of, not Nat, because her dad was incredible with music, but how I learned a lot of these songs. I was like, that's my favorite song. It's from Ferris Bueller.
I have a huge, extensive vinyl collection. I definitely knew about this song before. Yeah. And as Kathy points out, the Isley Brothers, which I also have them on vinyl, probably got nothing from this song, from this huge success of the song. But regardless, it's a good song. And actually I love the original the best by the Isley Brothers, and then the Beatles cover is my favorite of Twist and Shout. So those, you can do no wrong listening to either of them.
I like the Dunkasheen song. I like that one, plays rent free in my head a lot. I don't even know what it's called, but it's the Ferris Bueller song. It starts and I'm like, I know every line to that song. Just solely
I will embarrass myself. The first time when I first heard it, like eons ago, probably at this movie, I thought it was a girl singing it. I never knew it was Wayne Newton.
I don't think I realized
9 when he sang it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in your defense, it does sound like a woman singing it. So it's not just you. It's not just you. Yeah, I'm loving these. So Paul had said earlier that the final scene in that garage was shot in the early fall. So each of the leaves on the trees had to be hand painted green every morning before the shooting. Wow. Can you imagine being like it's so funny, like they miss other things. Like you were right, Lou, the baseball, that particular baseball game was in June. But then this parade is held every September. So it's like so if the parade is held every single September and the game is in June, then the fans are already noting all of that. So why bother painting the leaves? Like, why bother with that?
But that's, guys, that's some guy's claim to fame, though. I worked on Ferris Bueller. Oh, wow, really? What'd you do? I was the guy who painted all the leaves and the...
Every day I hand painted those leaves. Oh, that is so, yeah. And George is saying, regarding the parade, the movie details indicate that the film takes place near the end of the school year, not in September or on a Saturday. Yeah, it is always funny to kind of see the inconsistencies of some of these. These are some great comments, everyone. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Easily.
Yeah, Dana's treatment is a $10 million car today. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Crazy. I can't imagine. I still, I don't know about you, I still get like chills watching that scene, like where he's like freaking out and you're like in the moment of watching Cameron have this like really intense moment.
It's very dramatic.
It's super dramatic. Like your heart, breaks for him. But then you're also like, the car is gonna. And I've seen this movie so many times, and I still tonight was like, I'm like, oh, Cameron, the car, it's gonna go out the window. It's an intense scene to watch. I just even again and again, it's still an intense scene to watch for so many reasons. It's so layered that.
I remember the last time I watched it. There's a lot of subtleties in the acting, and there's when Cameron starts to sort of go off the rails, you can see like Sara wants to sort of move towards him, and Ferris just sort of like
holds her back.
And there's this very sort of subtle like just let him go, like he needs to like get this all out, and it is like it's this you're on this like a fun emotional roller coaster that hits a very like serious and sad and low moment, and all of a sudden you're like what does this guy's father do to him to make him sort of go off the deep end like this?
Yeah, I know you do. We are sort of like, and this is typical of a lot of movies, but we're sort of deprived of seeing the other side of this. Like you get a little bit of Cameron, and you get this like moment at the end of that where he's like, Ferris is like, he hates me anyway. I'm going to take this. Like, I'll take this fall for you. Like I'll tell him it was my fault and I did all of this. And, Cameron's like, no, it's going to be me. I'm going to stand up and do this. Like, I'm going to talk with him, I'm taking this on. You can't take this from me. But then the movie shifts and we don't see Cameron again. Like, that's it. We've lost him. And that's, you never get to see either of Cameron's parents. You never sort of get the end.
There's no resolution.
There's no resolution. Unlike like Breakfast Club gives you a little bit of that, where they kind of give like the the end, like the credits roll, and they give you the like little like blurb on each character where it says like what they've done or what they where they are in the future. You don't get that in this one, and part of me, maybe it wouldn't have been as good a movie experience, but part of me kind of wishes that we did get a little bit of that, even if it was just sort of like silent in the back, like even if you didn't actually like get a ton of it or get the full resolution, a bit more of it. I don't know. I kind of wanted it, but it would have made me sad, I guess.
I like leaving it open-ended, right? Because it leaves it to it. You entrust the audience to fill in the gaps. Like what was Cameron's father really like? What happened when he got home later that day? Did Sloane and Ferris end up getting married? What ended up happening? Like, what was the relationship like with his sister after that? Like, was this like this huge turning point? And I think it goes back to, like, I think as kids are watching this, especially if we were in high school, you would identify like, oh, my parents are a lot more like Cameron's parents, or no, mine are the like doting like parents that are going to rush home in the middle of the day to check on me and tell me how much they love me. Very sort of the dichotomy between the two extremes of parenting. I'm sure for people who were watching was like, I could identify with more than one or the other.
Yeah. Then there's some good comments coming in. So the Castle Run says the fact that he decided to own it was in itself the resolution. It didn't matter what the dad did. That's so true. It's just, I don't know. Part of me, I'm just like, oh, I just wanted to give him a hug. It's really what it came down to. I just wanted to tell him it was okay. I believed in him.
I did want to see, like, but I try and imagine what that you hear the door open and it's about to hit the fan. Like, there's going to be that moment where you have to sort of explain to your dad, and there's only so much that he can do. But I sort of like that. Right, it sort of takes us on this choose your own adventure ending to what ends up. How does the relationship between Cameron and his dad resolve?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Josh adds that the full resolution of this may have been in that 2 hour and 45-minute original script, right? So yeah, and then Doc says that sometimes tension is best when there's no resolution in movies. Remember that that in your podcast and shows. Yeah, absolutely true. Wise words from our podcast guru. Well, we've come to the point of the show where we typically do our rating system, but if you join us for the show often, you know that Nat and I completely make this up based on our personal feelings and has nothing to do with how good or bad a movie is. This is just entirely our gut reaction to everything. So if you are hanging out in a live studio audience, definitely drop in your rating or your thoughts, a 1 to 5 scale. You can rate in potatoes like us, or stars if you're more traditional, whatever you're in the mood for. What do you think, Chloe? What's your feeling? I mean, this is one of your favorites, so I'm gonna guess this is a full
it's a
5
plus. Katie, it's a 5+, and all these years later, it still holds up. I watched it. The movie absolutely holds up.
Yeah, it really, really does. And it's funny. So many of them don't in one way or the other. Like they don't hold up because either like it's really misogynistic, or there's like an actor that's like incredently problematic, or it's just
the technology,
or it's
right?
just dated, or the technology. But this one is like a really it's like a pretty serious snapshot in time, and you're right. I think it does really stay. Like it just somehow it manages to just pull itself off, which is kind of remarkable, all things considered.
Like there's a lot of movies from the 80s you can watch and go, if they had cell phones, this movie just would not exist.
Yeah.
So, but Ferris Bueller, it actually, I think it does. I think it still holds up, and I think it's still relatable no matter, especially if you're a high school kid, no matter when you watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree with that. I'm really excited for my kids to watch it. They're probably a tiny bit young, but I might anyway. We'll see. George,
I said it before, there's nothing like really like,
there's nothing really bad.
There's no cursing, there's no like, so, you can, I mean, there might be sort of, questions you have to answer and things you have to address, but like everybody in the family really to a certain degree can watch it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think so. George is giving it 5 cars. Doc is 5 German flags, 5 taters, 4 from Josh. So pretty well reviewed. We were at, unsurprisingly, I messed around with all of it now. I've lost Lou. There he is. 5 potatoes, 5 Christian taters on this one. I probably could have given it more too. From the second that it started, it just gave me all of the best possible feels. It was that like, oh yeah, I know, I know this space. I've been with this movie for so long and so many times that it just feels like home. It feels like one of those movies that I could watch probably a million more times and not be even kind of sick of it.
And every time I watch it, I always pick up something that I didn't catch before. Like the last time I watched it, there's one other character that breaks the fourth wall.
Oh, which one?
Who is it?
I'm really bad at details, so someone else will have to tell me. I'm not even going to try. I'm like...
It's Ed Rooney.
Is it? Okay.
I was
about to say Genie.
The very last shot, he's on the bus, and he stops, and he looks at the camera, and then it fades to black.
Oh, okay. I was not paying as close attention at that part. I was like excitedly waiting for the end part where he comes back and says, I was like, I remember this part. All right, let's see if I can fit Nat on one more time. She's trying again for her final thoughts here. Let me see if I can. Oh no, see, I'm breaking everything to do this. Breaking everything to do it. All right, Nat, I tried. Now we have 2 lose. All right.
You do not want to lose.
We always want to lose. All right, what other facts do you have? Because I know we're at the end here, but you've enticed me with your awesome fact knowledge. What else you got?
Let me see. Let me think. So I'm asking you before I say it's a definite fact. Isn't Shermer High School the same one that's in
Yes,
Breakfast Club?
It's
and another movie.
It's the same in like not all John Hughes movies, but this like era of them. So
is it maybe 16 Candles?
Yeah,
too?
it was a bunch of them. And if you're Paul, you're probably like madly looking through the sources in the show notes right now or in the description. But yeah, it is. The high school was the one that I wanted to mention was which I did not know before tonight, the Cameron throughout this movie, and again, I'm not observant, so I would never have noticed this on my own. He's wearing a Detroit Red Wings jersey, which is weird because they're in not Detroit, they're in Chicago, and Chicago and Detroit are rivals in many, many ways. So it's a weird option, and I guess it actually was given to Alan Ruck to play in this movie by Gordie Howe, and it's his number and it's his one of his jerseys. But I guess the story behind it, and maybe this is in the 2 hour and 45-minute version, but the story behind it is that Cameron's grandfather gave it to him and he wears it because it's like a stick against his dad, who's a diehard Blackhawks fan. But I have to admit, in my like lack of observation, that jersey does stand out to me, and because I am a hockey person, I was like, it's a little weird. It's a little weird, but I never looked into it before tonight, so that was kind of fun.
Wasn't it because didn't John Hughes grow up in Michigan?
Oh, that part I don't know. That you might be right there. Yeah,
I think he grew up in Michigan.
Yeah. Paul's adding some extra ones. So in the scene in which Sloane and Ed Rooney are standing outside waiting for Mr. Peterson, the school in the background was John Hughes' old high school. So you were right. Yeah. So there is definitely a connection there.
I thought it was interesting that Matthew Broderick and Jennifer Grey were engaged.
They were engaged. Yeah.
They were engaged.
Yeah.
And their parents like met. Ferris's parents met on the set and like ended up getting married in real life.
Yeah. I learned about the Matthew Broderick, Jennifer Grey engagement when we did Dirty Dancing, and for a moment I was like, wait, when was Dirty Dancing? And Dirty Dancing came out the year after Ferris Bueller, so it was, which is weird. I felt like in my mind it was the other way around, but they were still engaged, I guess, or they were still in a relationship, at least for some portion of Dirty Dancing. But I guess they were in like a really horrible car accident where a few people were killed in that car accident while they were filming Dirty Dancing. So they have really great chemistry, but they have such a great chemistry as brother and sister in this that I can't separate that in my mind. I'm like, no, that's weird. I can't.
Right, that angst between them translates into their marriage, probably. So
yeah. Obviously, it didn't work out. They're not married today. But I don't know. Yeah, it's so funny. I can't see Matthew Broderick with anyone, but who he ended up with. I'm just like, no, what? That's weird. I can't.
Well, so you were saying, you can't see Matthew Broderick. So I started to think. We talked earlier about seeing other people in different roles. Emilio Estevez turned down the role of Cameron. I could not, I don't,
no.
That's what I mean. I don't see that. I don't see that relationship being the same way. Cause there's this lovable, awkward nerdiness that Alan Ruck has that I think Emilio Estevez doesn't have.
Yeah. And I mean, I talk about typecasting. I mean, we just watched Twister for last week's episode, and Alan Ruck is in that. And we're just like, Cameron! It's Cameron!
I remember seeing him on Star Trek years later. I'm like, it's Cameron Fry at the helm of the whatever ship he was.
Exactly. Exactly.
And is it true that they offered Ruck the role of Ferris?
Oh, I didn't read that.
That they first offered him the role of Ferris because he had worked with John Hughes on other films before.
Yep. Again, I couldn't have seen that. Matthew Broderick just has such a presence that he's obviously been in other things, but for me, he's always been he just holds that, and hopefully he's happy with that. He's certainly had a successful career, but
it's hard sometimes to take these actors and no disrespect, them and love them for a certain role. You can't take them seriously. I can't take him seriously in some other super serious position because he's always going to be Cameron Fry.
Yeah. Yeah, Doc says, when I watch Succession, I still see Cameron Fry. Yeah, and I agree with Josh. Emilio is almost too cool. Like he's just, I don't know. Yeah, he's got a different presence. I think not that he couldn't have pulled it off, but I don't think with the same level of, I don't know. Yeah, whatever it was that Alan had a magic to him in this particular role that I think really carried through.
And then supposedly like Jim Carrey, John Cusack, Johnny Depp, Tom Cruise, and Michael J. Fox are also up for the role of Ferris.
Of everyone in that list, maybe Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox, right.
But the rest, I'm like, no, what? No.
Right.
It would have been weird. It would have been really weird. I don't know. Maybe there's another universe where people are like, really? Matthew Broderick? Like,
Tom Cruise isn't Ferris Bueller? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, Lou, I am so grateful that you were able to hang out with us tonight. Please come back and do another episode with us, pick a different
I would
movie
love to. This is so much fun. I could talk 80s movies, obviously, all day, all night. So
yes. Well, we won't make you do that. And Tater Tots are I'm sure getting tired too. Except for Doc, who's in Hawaii. It's like super early in the day for him. But thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for everyone who's been hanging out with us in the live studio audience. And if you want to find this episode and many more, you can swing over to our website, thevhsclubpod.com. But you're always welcome here, 9 p.m. Eastern, most Thursday nights. Sometimes we get defeated by the weather and by who knows whatever else. So we're almost every Thursday night, which leads me into, and Nat's not here to join me for this, but we have been trying to do our Ruthless People review for the last couple of months at this point. Something keeps happening, but next week might be the week. It's scheduled. We're planning to review Ruthless People. So if you have seen that one, definitely pop in and join us for that one. And if you haven't, give it a watch and pop in. It's a fun movie. Not quite as good as Ferris Bueller. Not gonna lie, this one pretty high level, but but definitely drop in and give it a watch anyway, because it should be a fun episode. Lots of comments and shout outs coming to you, Lou. Go Disney Lou. Great show, and this was great. Thanks from Val. Well, before we jump off, I want you to give a shout out for your show, because you do some really incredible stuff all in the Disney space. Why don't you give us a little bit of a background on your show and where people can find you?
Yeah, so I've been talking about Disney, primarily the Disney parks and resorts, for nearly 20 years on my podcast, which is wdwradio.com.
Oh, check it out. I had the pleasure of actually getting to be like in the park with Lou, and it was so fun. Yeah, I'm sure he was sick of me asking my bajillion and one questions, but we had an absolute blast. It was just,
we had a blast. Yeah,
there's something, I know it's so cliche to say that the parks are magical, but as someone that does not go often at all, and it was my first time in that particular space, and it was just so much fun. So it's a great show, and I love that you're doing that and being able to share all of those facts and all the history is awesome. Well, thank you so much. We did it. We're checking this one off the list. Although, since Nat missed some of it, who knows? Maybe we'll do a part 2. We'll just continue talking about this one. We'll bring Lou back. It'll be all great. But we will see you all next week. And if we won't, then have a fantastic summer. And thanks so much, Lou. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Walking the scene with